falling away. Some tell me now the fortune of the real. Call on our Savior to wipe out all the traitors. The earth trembled as we gathered ashore for the lands we swore to hold, for our kingdom glorious. Some tell me now the fortune of the realm. Call on our Savior to wipe out the traitors. The earth trembles as we gather ashore for the lands we swear to hold, for our kingdom glorious. We'll take our bombs, we'll make amends here. Where they bring death, we must remain. Relive the pain and turn it on down. 'Cause we must live up to our name. To those who intend on our red, we refuse to let you have the final say. Strike once and stand the throne. Strike
Alrighty, hello and welcome to the UKL Four Nations. We've got the promotion relegations here for spring. We've got a matchup here between Nativz and Bulldog. And for the keen-eyed viewers, they might notice that I'm Black Bloxer and that's Harrow Hamhand, and neither of us are play-by-plays. So, yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. They've been looking really good. Obviously, we've already had one team promote over on Thursday. Absolved was able to get themselves up into Division 1, so we've only got one remaining slot available in Division 1 between these two teams. The reason the Bulldogs are playing here on this Saturday slot is because they lost both of the games in that single round robin best of one that we had back on Monday. All the teams played against each other. And unfortunately for Bulldogs, they lost to both Nativz and Absolved, so they are looking like the weakest team that we've got for ourselves for this bit of the tournament. But still, you know, they've had a little bit of time to practice. They were able to sit back on Thursday and watch this team play, watch them get 2-0'd by Absolved, so they've got a little bit of information, you know, on how this team wants to play, and maybe they can come back stronger here today.
Yeah, hopefully they have a better showing today, as you were saying. But you know,
We'll
the
see.
the important thing for them is like this is the last chance. They have to. It's do or die to keep your slot in Division One, and for Nativz, it's their do or die to get to Division One at the end of the day. So we'll see which one of these teams wants it the most. I guess
Yeah. Yeah,
which
I
team can
mean,
show the more
between these
fighting
two
spirit.
teams, there's definitely a favourite coming in here, right? And it feels wrong, right, to say that the favourite is the Division 2 team, because as much as the Division 2 teams have been looking really strong, and we've been talking about, right, how a lot of the promoting teams have looked great, Symbol before they imploded, they were looking pretty strong. Inquick obviously managed to get themselves all the way to the finals. They're one game away from being able to win it. So Division 2 teams, they are very strong, but Division 1 teams, you get to play against this high level of competition. You get to sharpen yourselves against these great teams throughout the entire regular split. You do usually expect the teams coming from the top to be the stronger ones, for at least somebody to be able to keep themselves up. But for Bulldog here, it's really looking like it's going to be a rough ride for them. They're going to have to really change it up from how they looked back on Monday, because on Monday they were not looking so good. Have fun in Division 2. Yeah. Mike's being weird. Alright. Well, Harold fixed that. I'll talk through this a little bit instead. Yeah, as he was saying, a lot of these standard bans that we have been kind of expecting to be seeing here so far. I do like that the Heimerdinger keeps having to be taken out. Quite a funny
Should be
champion, and you know, we haven't really
should
seen
be
it too much up
back.
in Division 1. Nobody here really plays it too much, but they are going to take it away from Bulldog. Final ban, just going to be the Syndra, something nice and standard. Alrighty, so when we're thinking about the way that these two teams play... Oh, hang on. Oh, it was always going to be scuffed. It was always going to be scuffed the second that there was a colour and another colour to do this one. Alright, it is going to be the Nidalee as the first pick. Right here for Nativz. Bulldog looking to potentially respond right here with the Ari. Something just nice and standard. Pretty even in
Wait,
the
wait.
lanes for most of
hold
them.
on.
We'll see what the pick is
Should
obviously
be-
going to be from point.
Oh,
Harold?
can the people hear me? I have decided to make a on the go
I can
exchange.
hear the Harold.
You can hear the Herald, and the stream can also hear the Herald. Excellent, finally.
Yes. Okay. Right.
We're back.
We're back.
All right.
We'll continue it on.
As the first picks and bans come through, it's the Nidalee first pick for Natives. Of course, could be
Oh,
a flex
no.
pick with the rise of the.
Harold.
What?
Harold, no. Not again.
What?
Harold, you're cutting out again. No.
Oh my god. Hey, we're having a.
It's devastating.
This is. This is definitely a happening. Like.
You're in and out. It's fine. It's
Okay.
fine. Don't worry about
we
it.
should
Don't
be
worry
we
about
should
it.
be
Oh,
good here, but
okay. I'm better locking. Alright, so obviously the Nidalee could potentially have been a flex. It didn't necessarily have to go into the top lane. Could have been in the jungle as well, but with
it
the
could also
Ambessa,
be
I
in the
mean,
mid lane.
It could still be in the mid lane. We'll see if Point does want to take it. I mean, into the Ahri, the matchup's pretty fine. You can poke her out relatively well. You can, survive that lane. I still do think it's gonna... Yeah, okay, so that is then gonna be a Nidalee in the mid lane. Unless, of course, that's gonna be the Maokai in support. This
Still
is
a-
a weird draft right here out of Natives.
This is a very weird draft, but they're already securing a lot of like long range and not necessarily point and click, but guaranteed CC. This is like it fits to the degree of we want to blow up the one target. We can also lay up for the Nidalee to deal the damage. Maokai ult, Maokai W, and Ambessa ult are all great tools to lock down a single target with the use of this combined CC. The answer coming through from Bulldog is very standard, but it's very laning oriented answers. It's the Ahri and it's the Renekton to match into the Nidalee and the Ambessa. Of course, these should be winning lanes for these two, but I guess we'll see going through into the game. Mike Sharpie having a high degree of comfort in this Renekton. And of course, when his Urgot's taken away, we can default to kind of these more simpler bruisers. The kind of stat checking that can coast through the laning phase. But as the last few bans come through, it's a lot of AD carries. Few hyper carries also being taken away as the Sivir's getting banned. Wonder if we'll also see a Jinx ban at this point.
I mean, the Sivir has been really rising in priority across the course of the last couple of weeks. We've been seeing it more and more often. I do wonder if you're taking out the Sivir, if you might also just want to take out something like the Jinx, really take away a lot of those late game, late scaling options. I mean, right now, Bulldogs, they've got themselves a great skirmishing composition. Once you hit that level 6, around the grubs, around these early Drakes, they're going to be in an incredibly strong spot, and it's very much going to be on Natives to find different angles, potentially into the backline, to make these team fights work. They are going to take away the Jinx, so Natives, they do want to cut off a little bit of that late game scaling out of Bulldog, but you do still have a couple different options. The Tristana is fine at the moment if you want to go that way, but if you just want to increase your early skirmishing power, there's still plenty of aggressive ADCs that you can pick up here.
I wonder, you should at this point pick AD carry and then pick support on 5, but I wonder if you do want to secure yourself a strong support on 4. A Leona
actually
already
counter
works
with.
really well. But it's the Nautilus.
Interesting. I gotta be honest, I don't know how often I see the last pick ADC coming out from teams, but for Bulldog, I guess you gotta try something, right? You gotta change it up in some way, and they are clearly just gonna be a little bit worried about what UBH and Oct are gonna have down in this bottom lane, because if they do just get completely taken over in the bottom lane, as we did kind of see in their previous matchup, that can be really scary to try to deal with. The Braum, very strong at the moment. You can pair it up with a lot of good things. If you want the Lucian here to just have a winning lane, you could potentially go towards that.
Yeah, that gives you a really strong laning pair. There's not really an AD carry that you can pick on 5 that warps the lane in such a way that the Nautilus has an easy time into this lane, and the Lucian Braum can just fight forward. I guess you could fit a Ziggs for Nectarios, and that would nullify some of the pressure that the Braum Lucian can have in the laning phase. But, the Oct ends up going for the Xayah. I'm not quite sure about this pick. I get that, like, on the side of Bulldog, there's a lot of dive, but Wukong doesn't really care about your ultimate. You can just clone and then keep ulting with the second charge, but as the last pick is coming through from the side of Bulldog, currently being hovered is the Ezreal. I think that should work out fine. Xayah doesn't do well into poke laning phases.
No,
no, she is not a fan of the situation, and it will be locked in. Nectarius is going to be on the Ezreal. Very, very stock standard composition coming through from the side of Bulldog. On the side
Yeah.
of Nativz, there's a little bit of intrigue, especially coming through from the mid lane.
Yeah, I mean, the mid lane is somewhere that could potentially be explosive, as much as I usually think of an Ahri lane as just sort of chilling, not really potentially looking for too many solo kills either way. In this situation, maybe you do want to press it a little bit harder, and I think it depends on what Shy decides to do. If he wants to get involved in this mid lane, pre-level 6 especially, there is potential for some kill angles. If not, you're putting yourself into a situation right here as Nativz where Bulldog's composition really spikes super hard on that on that one item spike. The second that you can get one item into the back pocket of the majority of these champions, they're online, they're going to be really rolling, and that's going to give you a little bit of time as Nativz where you kind of just can't fully play the game. The skirmishing power is decent out of Nativz, but it's nowhere near as strong as what Bulldog can do. So I'd really like to see Shy be proactive during this early game and find a couple extra kills, get his team ahead as quickly as possible, so they're not then forced to sort of sit back and wait out their opponent's item spikes, waiting for theirs to come online.
Yeah, no, I do think Shy has a lot of the burden on this Native's composition, as you were saying, to try and just coast them through the early game and the mid game. The Maokai ult, the Nature's Grasp, is really powerful at like deciding the timer and the tempo of any fight, because you lay it down, you run at the enemy, and the enemy's kind of stuck there between a rock and a hard place, saying, okay, do we fight or do we just try and peel and maybe fight the kite back? But on the side of Bulldog, the composition is just, if they can keep the tempo up after they get the first item, if they can use these laning phases to just control the objectives, I see a Nativz team that has very limited forms of engage outside of the Maokai,
Yeah.
and it becomes just really difficult to set a fight, get a fight going, when you don't have a lot of guaranteed CC for one of the most, if not the most mobile AD carry in the game.
I mean, at this point, right, Nativ's way of starting out team fights is chucking down an ulti from the Maokai and then hope and pray, you know? Like, let's see. Let's see if you're gonna all get caught right here in the Nature's Grasp. If you don't, that's a little bit worrying. I mean, there's not that easy setup either for the Ambessa, right? We often see the Ambessa paired up alongside things like the Pantheon because you want that point and click stun to then be able to hit that ulti. It can be a little bit tricky to hit just midway through a team fight, so you can't really use that as that initial bit of engage. I think where this Native's composition really comes online is when you are jumping into them as Bulldog, because you've got a ton of things that you can chuck down when you're being jumped into to sort of slow it down, stop it dead in its tracks, and that might be the way to play, but it again removes a little bit of agency from them, and then when they do need to go and be proactive and try to get on top of Bulldog, that is a little bit of a worry. The thing is though, as much as I do prefer the Bulldog composition right here, Nativz have just proven to us so far that they are the stronger overall team, and especially they've been able to win out just in some of the laning phases as well up against Bulldog, so we'll see. We will see. Bulldog, they tend to look good enough during the first couple of minutes of the game, right? The first 6-7 minutes, that's Bulldog's time to shine, but beyond that, they can struggle a little bit. I think this composition does well to plaster over some of that weakness, but going into this game, it's very much going to be on this early game to see, hey, can you get yourself a big enough lead as Bulldog, and then can you hang on to it?
Yeah, I do think a lot of the burden of this early game is going to be on that Wukong. That Cyclone is the fight-defining ability on the side of Bulldog. It feels like if you need to play around your timers onto having the Cyclone, because you can just decide the skirmish. And as we've seen even in the regular season, Bulldog's early game was almost always the best part of their game. I think there was a game that they had against Inquick where they picked the Karthus, and they had a very, very accelerated Karthus in the early game. And it just ended up not panning out as the game went on. But I do think this composition very simple to play around, but as you were saying, fighting into the kite back on the side of Nativz is your doom. You do have to fight off of the pick. You have to get one or two and then immediately back off. You don't have to overextend. If you overgreed, you can get caught in that pullback from the feathers. You can get caught in the slows from the Brom, and then you're fighting into the enemy team's hand, basically. But
Yeah.
From what we've seen from Bulldog, sometimes when they aggress, there's no handbrake to stop them.
Yeah.
Kind of just keeps going.
Yeah, one once the train gets rolling, it is very hard to just make it stop at this point. And Nativz, they showed us during their previous matchups, even in the losses that they had versus Absolved, that they can find these moments, that they can be a really exciting team to get to watch as well. Specifically, if they are going to win, I think it's going to be coming through the top lane right here. Dalbany was really, really exciting to watch. Found a couple of really big plays in their matchup versus Absolve, but also in the matchup versus Bulldog back on Monday. And this bot lane, it could be interesting right here. It could be a lane that we can potentially see some explosivity out of. Now, the Recton into Ambessa, it does result in solo kills sometimes. Usually it's because somebody's over-aggressed a little bit, but hey, we know that you can do that occasionally right here as Sharpie, so he needs to be careful to not give over a little bit too much to Dalbany, because he totally will take over a game. I've lost Harold. No. Well, hi guys. How are you all doing? I hope that we'll get Harold back soon. At least it froze on a you know, beautiful picture of his face. Yeah. Yeah. This is good. This is good. And there he goes. Oh, okay. Alright, we're gonna go into game. Alright. Hello. Welcome to the Bloxer solo cast. When I knew I was going to be play-by-playing today, I didn't think that that meant I was going to be colouring too, but fair enough. We're going to jump on into this matchup here between Nativz and Bulldog Academy. This is the last promotion relegation match that we've got here for the spring. Winner of this one will be going up into Division 1. Loser just going to have to compete in Division 2. Nothing wrong with that. Division 2 is brilliant as well, but not exactly ideal, especially for Bulldogs, right? They come in, they pick themselves up this squad, and then all of a sudden, you know, not quite able to hang on to Division 1. We'll see if they're able to do it. I do have a Harold back in the call, though.
Yeah, hello. We're back.
He's here. Amazing. Are you in your call? Can
I'm
the
already
stream
in
hear
VMix.
you?
Yes.
Amazing. Right. I've done the intro. Let's talk about the game.
Yeah. Very, very sorry, but thunderstorms happen. But we are finally into game 1 of this series. You see some deep vision already being planted on the side of Bulldog. Point just taking such an aggressive trade early on in the mid lane.
Yeah.
I mean, using the power of the Nidalee to just try and get this Ahri out of laning phase, starting with E to get that extra healing, to get that extra attack speed steroid to just fight like early on, I guess. But, you know, as we see in the bot lane, not really anything to point to, but as we see a little bit of a hook going down, Braum passive being thrown down, no stun comes through.
Yeah, I mean, this bot lane could potentially be explosive. We saw that it was somewhere that Moo and Oct could potentially play around last time that we watched these two teams face off against each other. And I mean, anytime that you've got yourself these slightly more aggressive champions like the Xayah in the laning phase, you can potentially try to get aggressive. I think for the most part, you should be able to just sort of sit back, farm up. It's going to be on Kakashi for going in to actually start making a lot of these plays happen. We'll see if he decides to keep getting aggressive, because you do need to be careful, right? If you hook yourself in a bad spot and just immediately take a Winter's Bite to the face, yeah, you are probably not walking that one off.
Yeah, I mean, the Braum passive in this lane is just kind of the one thing that you must play around. You don't really get a choice of whether you get to play aggressive or not. You either just get punished or not, but you do have to try and get this Xayah down. I guess the Ezreal is the champion to try and do that. But as we see here already, an early reset coming through on the side of Nectarios to get himself to to get himself a tier already. He's trying to stack that up to get that Manamune,
Love
of
to
course,
get
the
this tier stacking
Ezreal.
as quickly as possible. Makes sense in this situation. He's also now going to be down in the bottom side of the map at about the same time as Tacos is going to arrive. Oct is going to walk up to put down a ward, which is just about going to save their lives, most likely. The wave was pretty pushed up, and that is going to force the reset out here from the Nativz bot lane. Stops Taco from being able to get anything proactive going in the early stages of the game, and that can be a little bit worrying for a Wukong. Wukong, you know, he does kind of need to get himself moving during the early stages of the game. It's okay to wait till level 6 when you've actually got a bit of CC to put down for yourself, but even then, you know, if you fall too far behind, this champion can feel a little bit useless going on forwards. So it is going to be a little bit frustrating for him that he wasn't able to get that early gank off. Instead, we're going to have a look up towards the top side of the map where Shy is hanging around. I mean, this would be a very risky dive if you decide to go for it. I can't see them trying this one.
I didn't think you should ever dive a Renekton when he has that rage bar almost filled up.
Yeah.
I mean,
Bad
diving a
decision.
Renekton is a choice in general. As I've experienced plenty of those in the past, people just trying, but you know, as we see the first resets already coming through, the first few bits of itemization coming through, of course, both junglers going for the 900 gold spike clear item, Fated Ashes for the Maokai, all probably itemizing towards the 2 AP item build, dive the Liandry's into the blood letters to just help out your magic damage dealers. As you see here, Point just taking these chip trades against Mike, but this
This is
is
the thing. This is how this matchup goes in the early stages. It's just a lot of pressure. It's quite miserable to try to step into. Obviously, you have to be careful here. Does still have the jump away, so Point is going to be able to survive. And also gets a little bit of vision right here onto Tacos. So this is just going to help the other lanes to know that they're not currently about to get ganked. You can push up a little bit more in the bot lane if you want to. So can Dalbany if he particularly thinks he can pressure onto Sharpie. Sharpie might actually be forced into a reset right here, even with a wave pushing right underneath his tower. Yeah, he's not being allowed to go back to base. This is kind of miserable for Sharpie. This is kind of miserable for Faulty. And this is another thing that I feel like it's worth highlighting for Bulldog. Yes, we really like the way that this composition spikes at that first item once you hit that level 6 for these skirmishes, but at least in these individual lanes, there isn't really a winning lane that you can try to play around as the Wukong, and that does hurt this champion quite a lot.
I mean, I do think there is a winning lane that you can play around, but we're in this current meta, playing around top lane is a choice, I would say.
It's tough.
Because most of the meta revolves around playing around these Drake timers. As you see, a little bit of a skirmish happening. The bot side breakable goes down, and as such, it will just be a little bit of HP. It is in the favor of the Bulldog bot lane, but you're taking this incremental trades. But the Zaya will be able to catch almost this entire wave under turret, keep the CS lead going. But as we see here, trading in the mid lane, Point is making this one hurt.
Yes, it's using this one very effectively, and I mean, you have to, right? The early laning power is one of the best things about the Nidalee. Scales decently in terms of just raw damage, but, you know, has a bit of a rough time during these big team fights if you're not super far ahead, so just find one of these key targets and take them out, especially when they are as mobile as the pickups right here for Bulldog are. Taco's once again going to look for a gank. He's been super proactive. Is going to go for this one onto Dalbany. Dalbany just going to pop the ulti, try to run away, and does have his jungler in the area, so this one is just going to result in a trade of ultis from the top laners and not a whole lot else. That's now the third or fourth attempted gank right here of Tacos that has just not gone well. Oh, Kakashi though. Oh, good sidestep from Point. Misses on the charm as well. Point has got his fancy shoes on here and is just going to be able to walk away.
Yeah, he's dancing ballet out here
Yeah.
while,
That was nice.
Bulldog are just trying to breakdance and try to find something, but it's just difficult. They're so slippery on the side of on the side of Nativz. All of these champions have some way of immuning a stun or some way of just making space between the CC and them. So it's just really difficult to try and find something. But as we see here, Magpie might have found something a little too big for his for his fight.
Oh, here comes Taco again. Shy was trying to push up a little bit, get a couple of these turret plates for his bot lane. They're able to do so, and again, Taco arrives, says hi, and kind of just has to walk away at this point. Hasn't really found too much effectiveness in the early game. Now Hook gonna land right here, straight up kill. That was nice from the bot lane of Bulldog. They're gonna be able to pick up the kill onto Dalbany and then push here onto these tower plates. This is exactly what you want from the cross map whilst you're losing the grubs on the top side.
Yeah, I mean, you're giving up a lot of objective timers here. You have already given up first rate. You're giving up the grubs, but I don't. On the side of Bulldog, this is, I feel like you're conceding when you don't have to. This is the part of the game where you should be able to say, okay, we technically have these stronger skirmishing options. We should be able to pick up these objectives, mostly because at that one item spike, then we can leverage those objectives into map trades and into getting advantage for trading for objectives. Basically, you can give up a first rate for the enemy if you already have two, if you can trade back for a tier 2 turret or two tier 1s, for example.
Exactly.
And it just feels like there's not much of that happening.
No.
Bulldog are just trying to coast through the laning phases, maybe just trying to get Taco to a situation where he can affect these lanes, but it's been really slow, and their composition does not like slow. They do get outscaled later on in the game.
Yes, absolutely. And it's also, right, like we've talked a lot about how Bulldog, they're really good during the early game, but kind of fall off later on just in their team play, not even just in the composition that we're seeing here today. So for them to not really get themselves too much of an advantage early on isn't ideal. Still, you do get that kill down in the bottom lane. Bloodlust is now going to be in a good spot for getting that first item completed. And obviously, once you do pick up that first item, huge power spike right here for the Ezreal. We're going to watch these bot laners and these top laners skirmish back and forth quite heavily. Dalbany potentially looking for a kill, but all of a sudden, Dominus is going to get popped, and Sharpie now can just try to chase him down. One more auto will do it, and that's going to be the kill.
It's a solo kill from Sharpie. The counter matchup comes through. The Dominus comes through. We saw him go a little bit low, but with the Dominus available and the Coldemy coming up, the Renekton just... Yeah, I love the champion. I love Renekton. I love seeing good Renektons in, especially in pro play. Just it tickles the good part of my brain, you know. But really good from Sharpie to just punish the overextension and the overaggression from Dobany. But as we see here, Taco's in the bot lane might be trying to lay up a dive, but Shy is over here. Shy is already there. I don't think that the dive will be happening.
It's also, even if Shy isn't there, a horrible set of champions to try dive, right? You know, the Xayah has obviously got the feathers to jump up into. You're just into a Braum anyway. Both of these champions have got the level 6. Definitely wasn't going to be the best available dive option. Still, it does produce a little bit of pressure down in the bottom lane right here for Bulldog, and it means that they are going to be able to step up and at least start this Drake first. The reset did come through out of Shy, so he's not going to be here particularly quickly. Point will at least spot out that this is happening. But beyond that, doesn't really look like this one's going to be contested in any way from Nativz, and so it is now going to be one Drake apiece for Bulldog and Nativz during this early game.
Yeah, one Drake apiece. It stops the objective, the defeat of Monsters lane coming through from the side of Nativz, as also Bulldog are looking currently on point to try and make a gank happen, but Shy is in the top river. Point is just gonna hover towards his jungler and not risk anything, as Shy has also picked up his first item already. It's the Liandry's, which means the skirmishing power is really up high, and you do win these early skirmishes, even into a Wukong, but...
Oh, the aggression. Hang on, they're going to go in, but all of a sudden Kakashi pops out of the brush, and that is going to just result in an immediate pickup of a kill. Shy going way too aggressive, wasn't expecting the support out of Bulldog to arrive, and this early game, once again, going really well for Bulldog. We were worried a little bit that they were playing quite passive, but these lanes themselves have been able to get themselves ahead. Now the map rotation coming through too, and this is good. This is what you need to do as Bulldog, but they need to pay it off right. We have said for the last 12 games in a row, Bulldog with a good early lead, but we haven't said Bulldog with the win yet this split. This would be the time to pick up your first right here.
Yeah, I mean, it would be finally a statement win to just try and make sure that, like, nobody beats us throughout 13 times in a row. And you just kind of just make a statement in this game one, and you say to Nativz, we're the Div 1, we're the guys coming down from Div 1. You have to beat us to get through, and we're not going to make it easy. But I do think there is a lot to be praised about Magpie's early game. I do think his hooks, even in laning phase, have been really good. The punish onto Dabani was also was really good when the swap happened, and the roam up when the invade was happening. It was a really good timer as the Drake had just gone down. Immediately comes around after the reset and makes sure that the fight is lopsided on the side of Bulldog. The Nautilus just gives you that ease of execution right now that is really, really important.
It's that bit of engage that you don't have to worry about so much, and that is what we were talking about, right, from the side of Nativz, that they don't really have that easy engage to try to play around, whereas you've got a ton of easy enough engage and some non-committal engage as well with the charm right here for Bulldog, so they can pick and choose their fights a little bit easier. Nativz, they're going to have to be very careful about when they go for these fights and if they can even jump far forwards enough to be able to pick up these kills. Still, we're seeing the first couple sets of items coming on through. Blackfire Torch going to be completed right here for Point, so he is going to be dealing quite a lot of damage. There's a lot of magic damage actually available right now to the Nativz side, but they haven't really shown us anything too much in terms of skirmishes at the moment. We've got 2 minutes until the next Drake is going to be on the board, and that's probably going to be the next big fight opportunity, although small skirmish right here. Ocht just going to get caught out, and I don't know if he can walk this one out. Maybe with the Nature's Grab. No, he's going to be taken down. Now Moo has to jump up into the feathers as well. Pulls them back, does a good chunk of damage to Tacos, is going to be able to trade that one over. It's going to be 1-for-1 right here in the little skirmish in the bot side river.
Yeah, when you use your Cyclone to try and blow up the Prom and then you dive a Zaya that still has feathers available, and you do not have the clone, you do not have the Cyclone available anymore, it just becomes really difficult for the fight to keep going. Good rotation also by Point and Shy to just make the fight impossible. As soon as they got into the choke, the power of the Maokai and the power of the Nidalee Poke just started coming through. Faulty goes in, tries to find the Charmed Flash out from Shy, finds, keeps his life going, at least for a little bit more. Still not deathless because he did die in the first invade in the top side, but I feel like we're going to see a slightly larger skirmish maybe happening around this Herald in the top side. I do think on the side of Bulldog, you do not want to give up that feat of monster slaying. But with Taco being on the bot side of the map, I do think I think the call has been made to just try and sack this and maybe go towards more Drake stacking and try and force that first turret down. There's a lot of damage that's been done to the bot turret here, and Ezreal, one of the better siegers in the game. I think is really, it's him, Tristana, and a few other AD carries that can just deal a lot of damage to the turret. Plus the TP comes through from, I believe, Dobani. No, it's Point.
Hang on. This one, going to be a little bit of engage right here. Faulty has to pop the ulti to just jump away, but still, the aggression coming through right here from Nativz. They're going to jump on forwards, pick up the initial kill right here onto Kakashi, and they can keep jumping on forwards. Bloodlust going to get stunned up, and he's going to be taken down as well. Just about gets over the wall. Maybe with this blast cone is going to survive. That should take him out of range, but still, that's going to force the members of Bulldog away, and this is going to open up the Drake for them. 15 seconds until this one spawns.
Now this is a bit of a disaster because Shy was nowhere near, and Nativz just said we'll collapse on the bot lane and we'll just keep fighting. Sharpie had TP the entire time. He could have TP'd to the fight. He could have went and helped his team to try and make that skirmish happen. You do want to get the strike, and you're just giving up tempo on the map now. Now Nativz are even. You had a slight gold lead on Bulldog earlier. Now it's even gold on both sides. It's first item completed for almost everybody.
Oh, Dago just walks into a brush that he probably shouldn't. Pops the Cyclone, so at least keeps himself alive for a little bit longer. And Shy is going to go down. The trade of junglers is going to come through, though. And now Bloodlust sat over the wall trying to deal the damage. Just isn't quite going to be able to. Kakashi limps away. Now Sharpie arrives to the fight. Is going to jump on forwards. Flashes in with the Dominus. Huge damage. Going to pick up the first kill onto Point. Ocht soon to follow. And now Moo just trying to get away. Has to flash from the charm. And that's going to be the fight for Bulldog. And the Drake is, in fact, going to be theirs.
The very scary Crocodile finally pulls the trigger on the teleport, finds the flank angle, gets into the fight, and the Eclipse proc with the Dominus running is kind of disgusting, I would say. The amount of damage.
What do you do about that one, right?
I mean, you could have just there sitting and thinking, oh, we are kiting out this fight, we're doing really well, the jungler's been picked off, and then a lizard appears in your backline, and you're like, well then.
Not ideal. Not ideal at all. It does open up Dabani to push forwards a little bit in the top lane, but doesn't even really get to tickle this tower either. And instead, Sharpie down in this bottom lane should just be able to pick this one up, even with a couple of members of Nativz on their way in. This tower should fall, and the Crocodile is in an exceptionally strong position right here.
Yeah,
Oh, he
probably
decides
going
he doesn't want it.
towards
Fair enough. Fair enough.
probably going towards that Shojin's second item. You know, a very melee heavy team. You know, the Nidalee is half melee. You get to stack it. You get to fight into it. Maybe going for a little bit of tenacity with the Sterex. Well, I guess we'll see what the choice ends up being on the side of Sharpie. But he is having a pretty good game. I would say. You know,
Yes.
probably
I'd say so.
been the best performer in this promotion relegation tournament on the side of
Yes.
Bulldog.
Sharpie has been a really strong top laner. Top lane has not been the issue right here for Bulldog, and it's especially good to see him taking Dalbany to task right here, because we were talking about it, right? How he'd been one of the strongest members for Nativz. He'd had some pretty good performances for himself, especially on the Monday, but also on the Thursday, had looked pretty good. But all of a sudden, you know, hasn't had a good time during this one. Has really been just dismantled by Sharpie. We're back. Hello.
We're back. Hello.
I assume there's a game break or pause or issue. We'll get confirmation for you. Still, we've stopped at a decent point in the game where there's lots and lots to talk about from the
feel
way
like
that this has been going.
I feel like we're at the point where we were discussing the fact of the one item spike coming through from the side of Bulldog. Everybody had that first item, and in these fights, if you do fight it out together, like you do have a 5v5s, you do have to give the edge on the side of Bulldog. But we've seen a lot of these like lopsided skirmishes where you're fighting into chokes, you're fighting into positions where you don't get to layer your CC, where you don't get to team fight the way you would like to, you know, using the Cyclone to find the disruption and find the engage as we get back into the game. And Nativz have been capitalizing on all of these missteps on the side of Bulldog to try and make these skirmishes happen, to try and make it really difficult on the side of Bulldog to push this early game lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Alright, we are going to jump straight back on into the game right here. Taco's pops over the back of the pit and is just going to take a reset. We'll see what he can buy for himself at the moment. Not really anything too much to be fighting over for the next couple of minutes. It's going to be 3 minutes until the next big objective is going to be on the board. And for right now, as we've been saying, right, Bulldogs, they're in a decent spot. They've got themselves about 1,000 gold lead. Still, considering how well a lot of these fights have been going for them, you kind of would expect this lead to be a little bit bigger at this point, potentially.
I do think on the side of Nativz, they've done really well to trade back in terms of structures.
Yeah.
A lot of the standing gold that was available is gone. The tier 1 in the bot lane is gone. The tier 1 in the mid lane is gone. Bulldog haven't taken a turret yet.
Yeah.
So they've been able to trade back in all of these fights just on map movement and on the just in being able to vacuum up some side waves before, but the Zaya now has completed the second item. We're talking about these one item spikes, and now there's a 2-item Zaya on the Rift.
Yeah. I mean, you're putting yourself in a little bit of a risky spot if you're ever stepping up to Moo right now. Has definitely come out the best of this early game for Nativz. 3-0-0. Decent little lead as well in terms of the goals. So just he's sat in a strong spot. I'm just going to jump back to us again. Something else needs to be quickly fixed through with this stream. Hopefully we can get back to the action nice and quickly, though.
Yeah, but now you're fighting into a Zaya with 2 items. You don't have a dedicated tank. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be really difficult. You do have to kind of focus all of your resources onto shutting down the Zaya. If you have Flash on Sharpie, it's time for that, you know, time-tested Flash Ruthless Predator onto the AD carry.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a permanent fixture in almost all League of Legends at almost every level.
Zaya's slightly better at surviving it than most of the other ADCs are, right? Imagine if this was an MF or an Ashe. That would be miserable.
That is true. The Zaya, if you do have the reflexes quick enough, you can pop the feathers, and then it's a lizard flashing into a hail of feathers.
Yeah. It's slightly harder to pick up this kill. I mean, that's why both of these ADCs in this game have picked themselves up these highly mobile champions, right? Because there is a ton of backline threat. The Renekton's is definitely easier to land, and I'd be honest, far scarier at the moment, but the Ambessa's isn't to be trifled with, especially once you can hit that 2-3 item breakpoint for the Ambessa. If you can land a big public execution into the backline, all of a sudden, you can completely disrupt what a teamfight is looking at. And as much as we are expecting these teamfights to be, you know, kind of front to back, if you allow either of these top laners to really get into the backline, you can turn it into a complete multi-directional mess very, very quickly, and in that situation, I'm not even entirely sure who I prefer. I think Bulldogs come out on top if you completely just break open these team fights and there's no lines in the sand for who's winning.
I mean, the Ari with the ultimate reset always gives you those windows to chase down and to make the fight a little bit more lopsided on the side of Bulldog, but at the same time, there's the mobility of an Ambessa, there's the poke power and the sustain coming through from the Nidalee. If you play in these 2-3 man cores where the Nidalee can use the power ups, but as we see here, the Dobany might just be dead.
Yeah, I mean, Naumani flashing away, potentially gonna get back towards the tower. No, is just gonna go down right here. One more auto attack should do it, and there you go. Sharpie just gonna be able to pick up this kill. Good aggression down on the bottom side of the map. Obviously, yeah, you can see the stream having a few problems right now. We'll hopefully get that fixed for you as quickly as possible.
Yeah, but as we see now, Bulldog are playing towards their strong side. You're playing around this Renekton, trying to make Dobany as weak as possible going into this mid game, because as you were saying, the Ambessa, once she hits those 2-3 items in these team fights with the public execution, is just able to create so much space, be able to create such a reliable pickoff point. It kind of just warps the team fight. It's like a Violent, but it's just more sudden. It really becomes difficult because then it isolates one target and then everybody can just try and pile onto it.
It is really strong, and I mean, I'm really enjoying the way that Bulldogs are playing out this early game, but I mean, I'm getting suspicious just because we're moving out of the early game, right? And I'm still enjoying the way that Bulldog are playing, and I haven't really felt this emotion yet so far this split. It's good to see them get an early lead for themselves and kind of just hang on to it and keep it going.
Yeah. I feel like Bulldog now we're coming into that phase of like, okay, have you learned enough to close out this one? Have we learned from our mistakes? Is it true that Bulldog does not lose 11 or 12 times in a row?
12 in a row, yeah. Yeah. Surely they can't, right? We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, we're having a few technical issues. We're going to throw it to a short break so that we can get these fixed. We should be back to you very soon, though, so don't go anywhere.